Welcome to another opportunity to think about what's on God's heart and what it will take for Jesus to return soon. This is Reach the World ASAP, and I'm Pastor Scott Griswold, working with ASAP Ministries. There's a good chance that many of you who are listening are not yet ready to hear Jesus say when He comes again, "I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink." I don't mean to say anything really bad, but think about it. Pretty much everyone around you isn't thirsty. The water is safe enough to drink straight from the tap. Lots of people have enough money to buy a filter or even buy a bottled water. And there's plenty left for juices, sodas, and Starbucks too. So there's not much chance to give a drink to someone who's thirsty. That's why I want to tell you about something I saw while visiting Southeast Asia. It was the dry season. There hadn't been any rain for several months. The huge pots that caught rainwater from the roofs were totally empty. I didn't see a well, and I knew there was no running city water anywhere nearby. So I asked my friend, "Where do the villagers get water?" He pointed to a muddy pond. It was chocolate brown. I saw some water buffaloes wade in to get a drink, and I had to ask, are the children really having to drink water from the same place as the buffaloes? Unfortunately, it was true. Some of the parents could afford charcoal or firewood so they could boil the water first and make it fairly clean. Fairly clean. It made me thirsty for clean water just looking at it. At the time, I had no idea that 768 million people, almost a billion people, do not have any clean water to drink. That statistics, those come straight from UNICEF. Have you ever been really thirsty? So thirsty you didn't think you could make it through church or to the next gas station or more likely all the way back from a long hike? These people in their dusty villages truly know what it's like to be thirsty. We're going to talk about things we can actually do to help such thirsty people have water. But first, I think it's just absolutely incredible to realize that the God of heaven knows what it's like to be thirsty. You wouldn't think that the one who can make water out of thin air would understand thirst a bit. But very clearly, the God who became man, Jesus, He understands. It's recorded in the Bible not just once, but twice, that Jesus was thirsty. I'm sure it happened many more times. John 4 tells about Jesus after a long, long walk, sitting at a well with no rope or pail to dip water with. He was thirsty without much he could do but wait for the kindness of a stranger, a foreigner, who might or might not care to help him. The other time it's recorded is when Jesus was on the cross. They say that it was excruciating for any person on a cross to try to speak. Only 7 times did Jesus bother to make the painful effort to push Himself up, wounds grating against the nails, in order to make room for His lungs to force out air and speak. One of these 7 times He said these words, "I thirst." John 19:28. Can you see Him pushed up into the sky on that awful day, exposed to the elements and the mockery of the people? He was in terrible pain, but He was also desperately thirsty. When I think about that, I see those villagers, so desperately poor, living with muddy water because there's nothing they can do about it. They have no resources, no filter, no money to buy a bottle of water, no knowledge of how to dig a well, so they're thirsty. My Bible tells me Jesus understands. In fact, John says that those words Jesus said, "I thirst," were to fulfill prophecy. What text was that? The scripture that comes closest to this is in Psalm 22, verse 15. It says, "My strength is dried up like a potsherd. My tongue clings to my jaws. You have brought me to the dust of death." Doesn't that sound like those dusty villages? If you look at Jesus' whole life, you can see His intentional steps to come closer and closer to the poor and experience their struggles. "I thirst" was a real cry from the very real Jesus. It also fulfilled prophecy because it was God's heart, His plan, to make known to the whole world that He understands and loves the poor. So Jesus died thirsty. He rose again, and now He's back in the safety of heaven. How do you suppose He feels about the thirsty now? We can know because He spelled it out. According to Matthew 25, verse 35 and 42, someday He will personally tell you and me either, "I was thirsty and you gave me drink," or "I was thirsty and you gave me no drink." He feels their pain. He feels their pleasure when someone does something about it. So we've just got to do something for those who are trying to live off mud puddles. What can we do? I want to tell you a story about my friend Big Ben. We went to college together, and then we ended up in Cambodia together. He's been working there ever since. Big Ben looked around and saw those dusty villages, and he knew he had to do something. So he started digging. The villagers just laughed at him. "What are you doing? There's no water down there." Occasionally, Ben would convince one or two of them to help, but they didn't last long. It was hot. The work was hard. Ben didn't have any money to pay them. But Big Ben just kept digging, and eventually he found water. Can you imagine how excited they were? A well means a good drink anytime you want. What else could you need? Oh, but then once you've had a good drink and another, you start thinking about washing dishes and taking a bath. How incredibly refreshing. I mean, if the well is adequate enough, you can start growing a vegetable garden and bring nutrition back to your white rice and dried fish meals. If someone teaches you, you might even build an outhouse and wash away the filth that's been gathering in your community. You can wash your hands and avoid typhoid and much more. Water, wonderful, life-giving water, a whole village transformed. So Big Ben dug and others joined him, but it was still really hard work. So he prayed to find a better way, and he discovered dynamite. Well, he didn't actually discover it, like make it or something, but he thought of it and he went off to find it. In a little village, just like I've been describing, Big Ben and his small Cambodian partner dug down as far as shovels would go. When they struck rock, Ben got his dynamite ready. Of course, all the children in the entire village were watching. He strung his electric wire from the dynamite in the well to his battery nearby. Making sure all the children were with him under a tin roof, he connected to the wire and kaboom! Bits of rock pelted on their roof, making loud noises. And the kids squealed, excited as could be. Big Ben and his partner, they waited a bit for the dynamite fumes to go away. They used buckets to pull out the pieces of rock at the bottom and then toss them over the edge. And they got some more dynamite ready. Kaboom! Down rained the rocks on the roof, and they did this over and over. Going down deeper, they needed a ladder. Bamboo poles, some strips across them made a ladder. So up and down they went. Big Ben's Cambodian partner was thirsty or hungry or something. He took off to buy some water or bananas. And Ben set the dynamite, called the children to get under the roof again, and kaboom, off it went. Back Ben went to the bottom of the well, where there were now some sharp rocks. The children peered down at him. He put some in a pail and he shoved them to the side. And then he began to feel woozy. I better get out of here. I didn't wait long enough for the fumes to clear. This stuff could kill me. So quickly, he climbed the ladder with a pail in one hand. Right as he'd almost reached to the top, he blacked out and fainted. Down, 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 he fell right to where the rocks had been. Ben Slopowie, Ben Slopowie, the children wailed. They were sure he was dead. They could see him lying at the bottom. Just then, Ben's partner came around the corner. Quickly, that small man crawled down the bamboo ladder. He had to get Ben out. Oh, but there was a big problem. He was so small and Ben was so big. Somewhere, somebody was praying for Ben. Somewhere, somebody cared about Big Ben and the many more thirsty villagers he could help. The villagers heard the children's shouts and they ran to the well. They saw the little man pick Ben up at the bottom and inch his way up the flimsy bamboo ladder. The fumes were too much for him too, and just as he reached the top, he also fainted and began to fall. And they reached out and they grabbed them both and pulled them onto the ground in safety. Big Ben lay there, he was completely unconscious. Ben Slopowie, Ben Slopowie. The children started crying again. They were sure their friend was gone, but he wasn't. He survived. He woke up and he went on to finish that well. In fact, he's still out there somewhere helping the people. I know what Jesus is going to say to Big Ben someday, don't you? I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. So, can we do it too? I bet some of you'd like to get on a plane and go right now and do some digging. Sure would be fun to explode some dynamite too. Well, maybe you'll be able to. One time my whole family and I joined a group of students and faculty from Rio Lindo Academy on an ADRA project. Put in a whole running water system for a village in northern Thailand. It was so fun. Maybe God is calling some of you to make a career out of providing clean water like Big Ben did. Do you remember? We said at the beginning, 768 million people do not have clean drinking water. That's about 10% of the world. Here at ASAP Ministries, we've helped put in some wells. I've got some pictures here of ones that possibly some of your donations helped make happen. You can find out how much it costs and then gather money from your own family, friends, neighbors, and church until you can confidently say, people are drinking clean water because we did something. Let's do it again for another village. One of the quickest ways to get money together is to partner with your friends to not buy any drinks for a while. Talk together and decide that every time you go out to eat or stop at a gas station or grocery store, you won't buy a drink, and you'll put aside the money that you would have spent, including any beverage, fruit juice, soda, or hot drink. It takes about $400 to put in a hand-dug well. 2 friends going without a $2 drink twice a week would take about a year to do it. That's long, but it'd be worth it. But suppose you got 25 of your friends and church members to do it. You could be cranking out a well every month. You might miss a few seconds of enjoyment on your tongue, but your body's not likely to miss the sugar or the caffeine. More importantly than having fun or being healthier, you would actually be saving lives. Isn't that amazing? You can save lives by giving so people can have water. And maybe while someone's out there helping thirsty people, he or she will have a chance to tell them about the God who loves the poor people so much that he became a man and was terribly thirsty and hungry too, just so he could understand their struggles and help them. This might even be a great way to make friends with some of the immigrants or refugees that have moved to your community from around the world. Find out about the needs in their home country. Work on a project together, raising awareness and gathering money. They will see God's love in you as you care about something that matters to them. Did you ever think that getting ready for Jesus' coming had anything to do with wells and mud puddles? If Jesus says that when he comes, he will divide people into the lost and the saved based on how they cared for the thirsty, among other things, then part of preparing for his return is learning to give a cup of water. That doesn't mean that we are saved by doing good works. Not at all. Jesus gives us his righteousness, takes away our sin. But the righteousness he gives us includes his love for the poor. And the sin he takes away includes our selfishness, wasting money on things that have no value while our brothers and sisters drink from mud puddles. I love how Paul says it in Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 through 10. For it is by grace you have been saved through faith, that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God, not of works, lest anyone should boast. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. Like water bubbling from a spring, God's salvation beautifully cleans us up and flows through us in loving helpfulness to others all around us. Let's find a way to give the world a drink of clean water. One more village, one more well. Let's find a way to show them Jesus' love. One more cup, one more friend. Let's reach the world ASAP.